What if everything you've been told about the creation of humanity has been nothing more than a carefully constructed lie designed to keep you from discovering the most extraordinary truth about your own origins? But before we begin, please hit the like button and let me know where in the world you're watching from today. It's always fascinating seeing who's joining us from around the world. Tonight, we're diving into revelations so profound and controversial that they've been challenging religious foundations for over a century. We're talking about Edgar Cayce, a man whose extraordinary abilities earned him the title of the Sleeping Prophet, and whose shocking discoveries about human creation continue to send shockwaves through both spiritual and scientific communities worldwide. Has this ever happened to you? You're sitting in a place of worship, listening to familiar stories about divine creation, when suddenly a nagging voice in the back of your mind whispers that perhaps there's something more to the story, something that traditional teachings have either forgotten, overlooked, or deliberately hidden from us. Well, you're not alone in feeling this way, and what Edgar Cayce revealed through his remarkable trance states might just validate those deepest intuitions you've been carrying. During the early 20th century, while the world was experiencing unprecedented change, Cayce was entering deep trances that transported him to realms of consciousness most people never access. In these altered states, he didn't simply receive vague spiritual platitudes or comforting religious messages. Instead, he delivered precise, detailed accounts that challenged the very core of what we believe about human origins. What you're about to discover might surprise you, because Cayce's revelations suggest that the story of human creation involves mysterious spiritual forces, cosmic architects, and intermediary beings that mainstream religion has never dared to acknowledge. The Sleeping Prophet's readings painted a picture so radically different from traditional biblical accounts that it left theologians, scientists, and spiritual seekers grappling with questions they'd never considered before. He spoke of humanity's creation not as a single divine act, but as an intricate process involving multiple spiritual entities working across dimensions we can barely comprehend. These weren't random visions or mystical fantasies. Cayce's readings displayed a consistency and depth of detail that suggested he was accessing genuine historical and spiritual records. What makes this even more fascinating is how Cayce seamlessly wove together elements from biblical scripture, advanced spiritual science, and ancient civilizations in ways that created an entirely new understanding of our true origins. Stay with me until the end, because as we explore these revelations together, you'll begin to see how this alternative creation story doesn't diminish the divine aspect of human existence. Instead, it reveals a cosmic collaboration so magnificent and complex that it makes our origins even more extraordinary than we ever imagined. The implications of what Cayce discovered reach far beyond simple religious curiosity. They touch the very essence of who we are, where we came from, and what our ultimate destiny might be. And as we're about to see, this journey begins with spiritual beings of light, cosmic experiments that didn't always go according to plan, and a truth about human creation that will forever change how you view your place in the universe. If these cosmic revelations have sparked something within you, I'd love to have you subscribe and continue this journey together. There's so much more of Cayce's hidden wisdom to explore, and honestly, it's richer when we're discovering it as a community. What sets Edgar Cayce apart from countless other spiritual mediums and prophets throughout history wasn't just his ability to enter these profound trance states. It was the remarkable precision and consistency of the information he delivered. While others spoke in vague metaphors or general spiritual concepts, Cayce provided intricate details about historical contexts, spiritual processes, and the actual mechanisms through which life manifests on our physical plane. His readings read like detailed reports from someone who had witnessed these events firsthand, complete with specific timeframes, geographical locations, and step-by-step descriptions of cosmic processes that most of us struggle to even comprehend. This level of detail becomes even more extraordinary when you realize what Cayce was actually revealing about the true timeline of human creation. The transformation in understanding that his revelations bring is nothing short of revolutionary. Instead of the familiar biblical narrative of a single instantaneous divine act where God forms Adam from clay, Cayce described human creation as an intricate, gradual process that unfolded over cosmic periods, involving multiple spiritual entities and forces working in careful coordination. The hidden truth that emerges from these readings challenges one of the most fundamental assumptions we've made about our origins. According to Cayce's detailed accounts, humanity's roots stretch back far beyond anything traditional religious texts have ever suggested. We're talking about a timeline that makes the biblical Adam seem like a relatively recent development in an ancient and incredibly complex story that had been unfolding for eons before the events described in Genesis ever took place. This shift in perspective has profound implications for how we understand our place in the cosmic order. The decisions made by these spiritual entities during humanity's gradual creation weren't random or haphazard. They followed specific protocols and operated within universal laws that governed the manifestation of consciousness into physical form. What's particularly fascinating is how Cayce described these cosmic forces working together, each contributing different aspects to what would eventually become the human experience we know today. The impact of recognizing this extended timeline goes far beyond simple historical curiosity. It fundamentally changes how we view our spiritual journey and our relationship with the divine. When you realize that your origins stretch back through countless ages and involve the careful work of multiple spiritual intelligences, it brings a completely different understanding of purpose and destiny into focus. Behind the scenes of what we typically think of as creation, there was apparently an ongoing collaboration between various levels of spiritual consciousness, each playing their part in bringing about the conditions necessary for souls to experience life in physical form. This wasn't a simple matter of divine will manifesting instantly. It was a carefully orchestrated process that required patience, precision, and constant adjustment as these spiritual architects learned to work with the unique challenges of bringing pure consciousness into dense matter. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic and explore exactly who these spiritual entities were and what their specific roles involved in shaping the human form we inhabit today. Write in the comments. Ancient origins resonate with me if this perspective on humanity's extended timeline is opening new possibilities in your understanding. According to Cayce's extraordinary revelations, the beings that would eventually become humanity started their journey in forms that would seem absolutely miraculous to us today. These weren't the dense, limited physical bodies we currently inhabit, but rather luminous forms of pure light and energy, endowed with levels of consciousness and supernatural abilities that stretch far beyond anything we can imagine in our current state. Picture beings who could move through space and time without physical constraints, communicate through direct telepathic connection, and access knowledge from the universal mind as easily as we might check our phones today. The transformation that these revelations represent in our understanding becomes even more compelling when you consider how Cayce delivered this information. He didn't speak like someone receiving vague spiritual impressions or interpreting symbolic visions. Instead, his narration carried the weight and conviction of someone recounting actual memories, as if he had been there witnessing these events unfold across the ages. The decisions and processes he described weren't presented as theoretical possibilities, but as concrete historical realities that he was somehow able to access and report with startling clarity and consistency. What makes this journey through Cayce's revelation so fascinating is how he described a time when the boundaries between the divine and human realms were virtually non-existent. The hidden truth he unveiled speaks of an era when spiritual and physical reality operated as one seamless continuum, where beings of light moved effortlessly between dimensions and maintained constant, direct connection with the source of all creation. This wasn't some distant, unreachable paradise. According to Cayce, this was actually our natural state, our original condition before something fundamental shifted in the cosmic order. The impact of understanding this original state goes far beyond simply learning about ancient history. It fundamentally changes your mindset about what human potential really means and what we might be capable of accessing even now. When you realize that these supernatural abilities weren't reserved for a few special beings, but were actually the normal operating capacity of early humanity, it opens up entirely new possibilities for your own spiritual development and transformation. Behind the scenes of our current physical existence, Cayce suggested that we still carry the energetic signature and spiritual DNA of these original light beings. The journey we're on isn't about becoming something completely new, but rather about remembering and reclaiming abilities and connections that are already encoded within our deepest essence. This perspective shifts everything because it means that the extraordinary spiritual experiences and psychic phenomena that occasionally break through into our awareness aren't anomalies or special gifts. They're actually glimpses of our true nature trying to reassert itself. The revelations become even more intriguing when you consider that this direct divine connection wasn't lost through some cosmic accident or divine punishment, but through a gradual process that involved specific choices and circumstances that led to humanity's current state of separation from these original abilities. Write in the comments, "Light being resonates," if you feel a deep recognition when hearing about humanity's original luminous form. The impact of these revelations on academic and religious communities has been nothing short of extraordinary. For decades now, scholars, theologians, and spiritual researchers have been grappling with the implications of what Cayce revealed, and the debates continue to intensify rather than diminish. What's particularly fascinating is how these discussions have evolved beyond simple acceptance or rejection of his claims. Today, you'll find respected academics quietly exploring how Cayce's descriptions might align with cutting-edge discoveries in quantum physics, consciousness research, and even archaeological findings that keep pushing back the timeline of human civilization. If this perspective on our cosmic origins resonated with your soul, that like button is a beautiful way to acknowledge the connection we've shared here. It tells me these truths are landing where they need to. The transformation in thinking that Cayce's revelations demand goes far, deeper than most people initially realize. He wasn't simply offering an alternative creation story. He was describing humanity as the end result of an incredibly sophisticated cosmic process that involved multiple levels of reality working in perfect coordination. The hidden truth behind this process reveals that what we call creation was actually more like a carefully orchestrated manifestation project, where spiritual forces across different dimensions collaborated to bring consciousness into physical form through a series of precisely timed and coordinated steps. This shift in perspective fundamentally changes how we understand our place in the universe. Instead of being the products of a single divine decision, we emerge as participants in an ongoing cosmic collaboration that required extensive preparation and planning. According to Cayce's detailed accounts, the Earth itself wasn't simply a random planet that happened to support life. Rather, it was specifically prepared and cultivated by advanced spiritual forces long before any human souls were ready to incarnate into physical form. The decisions made during this preparation phase were apparently crucial to ensuring that the planet could support the complex process of consciousness manifestation. Cayce described how these spiritual architects worked tirelessly to establish the right energetic conditions, atmospheric compositions, and even geological formations that would be necessary to sustain beings who were transitioning from pure spiritual existence into physical embodiment. Behind the scenes of what we typically think of as natural evolution, there was apparently a sophisticated infrastructure being established by beings who understood the intricate requirements for bridging the gap between spiritual and material reality. The journey from pure consciousness to physical form required not just the right planetary conditions, but also careful timing to ensure that souls were ready for this profound transformation and that the Earth was prepared to receive them. What makes this cosmic process even more remarkable is how it suggests that nothing about human existence happened by accident or chance. Every aspect of our current reality, from the way our consciousness interfaces with physical matter to the specific challenges and opportunities we encounter on Earth, appears to have been carefully designed and implemented by intelligences operating on levels we're only beginning to comprehend. Now, I want to explore exactly who these spiritual architects were and what their specific roles involved in preparing our planet for this unprecedented experiment in consciousness. Write in the comments, "Cosmic collaboration," if you're beginning to see how this changes everything about our understanding of human purpose. According to Cayce's revelations, the journey toward physical existence began with a profound decision made by fragments of divine consciousness itself. These weren't separate entities created by God, but rather aspects of the divine mind that chose to experience something entirely new, the adventure of existence within material reality. The transformation that this represents is staggering when you really consider it. We're talking about pieces of infinite consciousness deliberately limiting themselves to explore what it would be like to experience separation, individual identity, and the unique challenges that come with inhabiting physical form. But here's where the hidden truth becomes even more fascinating. These divine fragments couldn't simply jump directly into dense physical bodies. There needed to be intermediaries, beings that Cayce referred to as cosmic architects, who possessed both the spiritual wisdom and the technical knowledge necessary to bridge the gap between pure consciousness and material existence. These spiritual intelligences operated like master craftsmen, understanding exactly how to create forms that could successfully house divine consciousness while still functioning within the laws of physical reality. The decisions these cosmic architects made during this process revealed just how complex and delicate this entire operation really was. They had to design forms that were sophisticated enough to contain the full essence of divine consciousness, yet adaptable enough to gradually interface with increasingly dense material conditions. What emerged from their work were the first human manifestations, translucent, luminous beings that existed in a state somewhere between pure spirit and physical matter. Picture these early forms moving across the primitive Earth with complete freedom, unencumbered by the physical limitations we experience today. Their communication flowed through direct telepathic connection, allowing instant sharing of thoughts, emotions, and experiences without the barriers that language and physical distance create for us now. The impact of understanding what we once were, fundamentally, shifts your mindset about what might still be possible for humanity, even in our current state. We've barely scratched the surface of Edgar Cayce's insights today. If you're feeling called to dive deeper into these spiritual mysteries, hit subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. Trust me, it gets even more mind-blowing. Behind the scenes of this extraordinary manifestation process, these cosmic architects were essentially creating a new category of existence, beings that could maintain their divine consciousness while simultaneously exploring the unique opportunities that material reality offered. This wasn't about punishment or exile from paradise, but rather about expansion, growth, and the development of qualities and experiences that pure spiritual existence couldn't provide. The journey from these luminous, translucent forms to our current dense physical bodies represents one of the most significant transformations in cosmic history, and the reasons behind this dramatic shift reveals secrets about our true purpose and ultimate destiny that challenge everything we've been taught about spiritual evolution. Now, I want to examine exactly what caused these perfect light beings to undergo such a dramatic transformation into the dense physical forms we inhabit today. Write in the comments, divine fragments choosing, if this idea of consciousness voluntarily entering matter resonates with your own spiritual understanding. What happened next in humanity's journey represents one of the most profound transformations in cosmic history, and it wasn't the neat, orderly process that most spiritual teachings suggest. According to Cayce's revelations, these beautiful, luminous beings gradually began experiencing something entirely unexpected, an attraction to the denser vibrations of material existence. The impact of this attraction wasn't immediate, but rather unfolded as a slow, almost magnetic pull that drew these ethereal forms deeper into physical reality than anyone had originally planned. This gradual densification process reveals the hidden truth about how consciousness interacts with matter. The decisions made by these light beings weren't necessarily wrong, but they created consequences that required immediate intervention from the cosmic architects who had been overseeing the entire project. What started as a controlled experiment in consciousness exploration was becoming something far more complex and challenging than anyone had anticipated. Behind the scenes of this cosmic collaboration, we see something that fundamentally changes our mindset about divine creation itself. This wasn't a perfect, flawless process orchestrated by infallible beings. Instead, Cayce revealed that human creation involved real trial and error, genuine learning experiences, and even mistakes that required constant adjustments and corrections. The transformation this represents in our understanding is enormous. We're not the products of a single perfect divine act, but rather the results of an ongoing creative process that involved experimentation, adaptation, and continuous refinement. The journey these cosmic architects were navigating had never been attempted before on this scale. They were essentially pioneering a completely new form of existence, trying to balance the divine nature of consciousness with the practical requirements of physical manifestation. Some of their initial attempts resulted in forms that couldn't maintain stability in the earthly environment. Other experiments created beings with extraordinary abilities, but bodies that couldn't sustain long-term existence in dense matter. What's particularly fascinating is how Cayce described the collaborative nature of problem-solving that emerged during this process. When unforeseen consequences arose, it wasn't just the cosmic architects working alone to find solutions. The divine consciousness fragments themselves were actively participating in figuring out how to make this unprecedented experiment successful. The revelations suggest that we weren't passive recipients of creation, but rather active participants in designing and refining the very forms we would inhabit. This understanding completely shifts the traditional narrative about human origins from one of divine perfection to one of cosmic innovation and collaborative problem-solving. The errors and adjustments weren't signs of failure, but rather evidence of the incredible complexity and pioneering nature of what was being attempted. Now, I want to explore the specific types of experiments and adjustments that were made, and how some of these early attempts led to completely unexpected results that still influence human existence today. Write in the comments, cosmic trial and error, if you find it liberating to discover that even divine creation involved learning and adaptation. The specific challenges that emerged during these cosmic experiments revealed just how intricate and delicate this entire process really was. According to Cayce's detailed accounts, some of the early attempts resulted in bodies that simply couldn't properly accommodate the souls they were designed to house. Imagine the frustration and determination of these cosmic artisans as they discovered that consciousness and physical form needed to achieve a precise energetic match that was far more complex than they had initially realized. The transformation in understanding this brings to our own spiritual journey is profound. These weren't random failures, but rather valuable learning experiences that provided crucial data about how divine consciousness interfaces with material reality. Some experiments created hybrid forms with extraordinary capabilities but bodies that couldn't withstand the environmental conditions of primitive Earth. Others resulted in perfectly stable physical forms that unfortunately couldn't sustain the full spectrum of spiritual consciousness they were meant to contain. Behind the scenes of these ongoing adjustments, we discover that the entities responsible for human creation were themselves operating from higher dimensional planes while maintaining the ability to directly interact with earthly reality. These beings of pure light possessed a level of spiritual technology and understanding that allowed them to work simultaneously across multiple levels of existence. The decisions they made weren't based on theoretical knowledge, but on direct experience with the fundamental forces that govern both spiritual and material manifestation. What's particularly fascinating is how Cayce described these cosmic artisans as having accepted a specific mission with full awareness of its unprecedented challenges. They weren't simply following predetermined blueprints, but rather pioneering an entirely new category of existence. The impact of this revelation fundamentally shifts our mindset about divine purpose and cosmic responsibility. These beings voluntarily took on the complex task of fashioning vessels that could successfully bridge the gap between infinite consciousness and finite physical form. The hidden truth that emerges from understanding their role is that human creation was essentially a collaborative research and development project involving some of the most advanced spiritual intelligences in the cosmos. Each failed experiment provided valuable insights that informed the next iteration, gradually refining the design parameters until they achieved forms capable of sustaining human consciousness, while still allowing for growth, learning, and spiritual evolution within material reality. The journey these cosmic artisans were navigating required not just technical expertise, but also profound patience and dedication to a vision that extended far beyond immediate results. They were essentially laying the foundation for an entirely new phase of cosmic evolution. Now, I want to delve into how this experimental process eventually led to connections with one of the most mysterious and advanced civilizations in human history. Write in the comments, cosmic artisans working. If you're amazed by the dedication and precision involved in creating suitable vessels for human consciousness. The complexity of what these cosmic artisans were attempting becomes even more staggering when you consider the specific challenge they faced. They needed to create physical forms that could successfully sustain divine consciousness while still maintaining a functional connection with material reality. Think about the incredible precision this required. Bodies that were dense enough to interact with physical matter, yet sensitive enough to serve as vessels for infinite spiritual awareness. The transformation this represents in engineering terms goes far beyond anything we can currently comprehend. The hidden truth about this balancing act reveals why human existence feels so uniquely challenging and often contradictory. We're literally living in forms that were designed to bridge two completely different realms of existence. The decisions made during this experimental phase had to account for countless variables: how much spiritual sensitivity could be maintained without making the body too fragile for earthly conditions, how much physical density was necessary without completely blocking access to higher consciousness. Behind the scenes of this cosmic research project, these spiritual creators were essentially inventing an entirely new category of existence with no previous models to guide them. The impact of understanding this experimental nature completely shifts your mindset about human imperfection and limitation. Every challenge we face, every struggle between our spiritual aspirations and physical needs reflects the ongoing refinement of this unprecedented experiment in consciousness manifestation. When something this profound shifts your understanding of who you are, a simple, becomes more than a click. It's your way of saying, "This speaks to me." I'd be honored if you'd share that acknowledgement. What makes this journey even more remarkable is the sheer scale of time involved in gradually perfecting these human forms. We're talking about cosmic periods that stretch beyond human comprehension, eons during which these spiritual architects patiently adjusted, refined, and evolved the design parameters based on real-world testing and feedback. This wasn't a rushed job or a temporary solution, but rather a commitment to long-term development that spanned geological ages. The revelations about this gradual perfection process show us that what we consider human evolution was actually guided development, with conscious intelligences making strategic adjustments to ensure our forms could successfully adapt to changing planetary conditions while still serving their primary purpose as vehicles for spiritual growth. Each refinement brought us closer to bodies that could sustain higher consciousness while remaining fully functional in physical reality. The patience and dedication required for this cosmic-scale project reveals something profound about the importance these beings placed on the human experiment. They weren't just creating another life form, but rather pioneering a completely new phase of cosmic evolution that would eventually serve purposes extending far beyond our current understanding. Now, I want to explore how this experimental process eventually established connections with advanced civilizations that possess technologies and wisdom that still seem impossible by today's standards. Write in the comments, "Cosmic patience amazes me," if you're struck by the incredible dedication these beings showed across such vast timescales. According to Cayce's extraordinary revelations, what emerged from all this cosmic experimentation was something unprecedented in universal history. Earth became a living laboratory, where divine consciousness and advanced spiritual technology converged to create an entirely new form of life. The transformation this represents goes far beyond simple biological evolution. We're talking about a planet that was essentially converted into a testing ground for the most ambitious consciousness experiment ever attempted, where the fundamental laws of spiritual and material reality were being explored and refined in real time. The impact of understanding Earth's role as this cosmic laboratory fundamentally shifts your mindset about why our planet seems so uniquely diverse and complex compared to what we observe elsewhere in the universe. Every ecosystem, every geological formation, every atmospheric condition was apparently designed or influenced by these spiritual architects to provide the optimal environment for consciousness to successfully interface with physical matter across a vast range of conditions and experiences. But here's where the hidden truth becomes even more personal and profound. According to Cayce, the legacy of these cosmic creators didn't simply disappear once their work was complete. Instead, their spiritual signatures remain permanently inscribed within our very essence, encoded not just in our spiritual DNA, but potentially even in our physical genetic structure. The decisions these beings made during the creation process continue to influence our capabilities, our limitations, and our potential for spiritual development even today. Behind the scenes of our everyday existence, we're apparently carrying the energetic fingerprints of some of the most advanced spiritual intelligences in the cosmos. This means that every intuitive insight, every moment of expanded consciousness, every experience of connection with something greater than ourselves might actually be our original spiritual programming reasserting itself. The journey we're on isn't just about personal growth, but about remembering and reactivating abilities that were built into our fundamental design. This understanding becomes even more fascinating when Cayce connected these revelations directly to one of history's most mysterious civilizations, Atlantis. But according to his readings, Atlantis wasn't just a legendary lost continent that appears in ancient myths. Instead, he described it as both a historical and spiritual reality that played a crucial role in the human creation process itself. The revelations suggest that many of these cosmic architects either inhabited or operated from Atlantis, using this advanced civilization as their primary base of operations for the complex work of refining human consciousness and perfecting the physical forms we would eventually inhabit. Now, I want to examine exactly how this lost civilization became the epicenter for some of the most advanced spiritual and technological experiments in human history. Write in the comments, spiritual signatures activate if you've ever felt like you're remembering abilities that seem to come from somewhere beyond your current lifetime. According to Cayce's detailed readings, Atlantis served as much more than just an advanced civilization. It functioned as the primary operational headquarters for these cosmic architects as they conducted their groundbreaking experiments with human physical form. The transformation that this represents in our understanding of ancient history is staggering. We're not talking about a primitive society that gradually developed technology, but rather a sophisticated base of operations established by beings who possessed spiritual and technological capabilities that surpass even our most advanced modern knowledge. The hidden truth about Atlantean civilization reveals something that fundamentally changes your mindset about the relationship between science and spirituality. In Atlantis, these two realms weren't separate disciplines competing for validity, but rather complementary aspects of a unified understanding of reality. The decisions made by these advanced beings were based on a complete integration of spiritual wisdom and technical precision that allowed them to manipulate matter and energy in ways that we're only beginning to theoretically comprehend today. Behind the scenes of this remarkable civilization, the cosmic architects were essentially running the most sophisticated research and development facility in Earth's history. They possessed technologies that could directly interface with consciousness, manipulate genetic structures at levels we've never approached, and work with energetic frequencies that modern science hasn't even discovered yet. The impact of understanding what was really happening in Atlantis shows us that our current technological achievements, impressive as they seem, are actually just rediscovering principles that were once common knowledge. What makes this period even more fascinating is how harmoniously the early stages of human development unfolded within this advanced environment. The first humans, still existing in their subtle, semi-ethereal bodies, coexisted peacefully with these highly evolved beings who served as their guides and overseers during the delicate adaptation process to earthly existence. The journey these early humans were navigating required constant supervision and adjustment as they learned to interface with increasingly dense physical conditions. The revelations about this harmonious coexistence suggest that the initial phases of human incarnation were supported by a level of wisdom and care that ensured optimal conditions for consciousness to successfully adapt to material reality. These advanced beings weren't distant observers, but rather hands-on facilitators who understood exactly what was needed to help divine consciousness safely transition into physical form without losing its essential spiritual connection. This peaceful collaboration between dimensions represents a golden age of spiritual technological integration that would eventually face challenges that would forever change the course of human development. Now, I want to explore what happened when this harmonious relationship began to shift, leading to conflicts that would ultimately reshape both human nature and the fate of Atlantis itself. Write in the comments, Atlantean harmony remembered. If you feel a deep nostalgia when hearing about this period of peaceful coexistence between humans and advanced beings. This harmonious period in Atlantis, however, wasn't destined to last forever. According to Cayce's revelations, fundamental disagreements began emerging among the advanced beings who were overseeing human development. The transformation that occurred during this period represents one of the most crucial turning points in human history. Yet it's a story that's been completely lost to conventional historical understanding. On one side were beings who believed in maintaining humanity's spiritual, purity and natural development path. On the other were those who saw opportunities to exploit human potential for their own purposes and agendas. The impact of these disputes goes far beyond simple philosophical differences. The decisions made during this period would fundamentally alter the trajectory of human evolution and consciousness. Behind the scenes of what appeared to be a thriving civilization, a power struggle was developing that would ultimately determine whether humanity would continue its natural spiritual development or be redirected towards serving other interests. This conflict wasn't just about ideology, it was about the very essence of what human beings were meant to become. What makes this period so critical is how the factions seeking to exploit human potential actually succeeded in implementing genetic and energetic manipulations that permanently changed our nature. These weren't subtle adjustments to help with adaptation, but rather deliberate alterations designed to make human bodies denser and significantly less connected to higher consciousness. The hidden truth about these manipulations reveals why we often feel so disconnected from our spiritual essence and why accessing higher states of consciousness requires such effort for most people today. To truly understand the magnitude of what was lost during this period, you need to grasp what human existence was like before these alterations took place. Cayce described humans in their perfect form as beings of pure light and energy, completely free from disease, aging, and physical limitations. The journey we were originally on involved maintaining this luminous essence while gradually learning to interface with material reality, not abandoning our spiritual nature to become trapped in dense physical form. This original state wasn't some distant, unreachable paradise, but rather our natural condition before the Atlantean manipulations redirected our development. The mindset shift this brings is profound. Instead of seeing our current limitations as normal, we begin to recognize them as the results of interference with our original design. Understanding this helps explain why practices like meditation, energy healing, and spiritual development feel like remembering rather than learning something completely new. The revelations about our perfect form before the fall show us that what we consider supernatural abilities were actually our normal operating capacity, and the struggles we face with illness, aging, and spiritual disconnection represent deviations from our intended path. Now, I want to examine exactly how this fall from our perfect state unfolded and what the cosmic consequences of these Atlantean manipulations meant for the future of human consciousness. Write in the comments, perfect form remembered. If learning about humanity's original luminous state awakens something deep within your own spiritual memory, the experience of existing in this perfect form included something that most of us can barely imagine. Consciousness that was expanded and directly connected to the divine mind itself. Communication flowed effortlessly as silent dialogue between souls, with no barriers, no misunderstandings, and no separation between individual awareness and universal wisdom. The transformation this represents compared to our current state of isolated, limited consciousness reveals just how dramatic our fall really was. We went from beings who could access infinite knowledge instantaneously to creatures struggling to understand even basic spiritual concepts through the filters of dense physical brains. But according to Cayce's revelations, this fall wasn't imposed upon us as punishment or divine judgment. Instead, it began as souls became increasingly fascinated by the unique sensations and pleasures that material existence offered. The decisions made during this period weren't necessarily wrong, but they set in motion a gradual process that would fundamentally alter human consciousness. Behind the scenes of what appeared to be innocent experimentation with physical sensation, something far more significant was happening: the weakening of our direct connection to higher spiritual planes. The impact of this gradual attraction to material pleasures created a domino effect that changed everything about human existence. As souls became more invested in physical experiences, they began spending increasing amounts of time focused on material reality rather than maintaining their connection to divine consciousness. This shift in attention and priority gradually altered the very structure of awareness itself, making it progressively more difficult to access the expanded states of consciousness that had once been our natural condition. What makes this fall so tragic is the hidden truth about what was lost in the process. As souls incarnated more deeply into increasingly dense physical bodies, they experienced what Cayce described as cosmic forgetfulness, the loss of conscious memory about their divine origin and the initial purpose of their existence on Earth. The journey from omniscient beings, connected to universal mind, to confused creatures struggling to remember why we're here, represents one of the most profound transformations in cosmic history. This forgetfulness wasn't a temporary side effect that would naturally resolve itself over time. Instead, it became a fundamental characteristic of incarnated existence, creating a veil between our conscious awareness and our true spiritual nature that most humans struggle with throughout their entire lifetimes. The mindset shift required to understand this reveals why spiritual awakening often feels like remembering rather than learning, and why moments of expanded consciousness feel so familiar despite being so rare in our current experience. Now I want to explore the deeper implications of this cosmic forgetfulness and how it fundamentally changed humanity's relationship with the divine creative force that had originally brought us into existence. Write in the comments, "Cosmic forgetfulness explains everything." If this understanding of how we lost our connection to divine consciousness resonates with your own spiritual experiences. Despite this cosmic forgetfulness representing such a profound loss, Cayce's revelations reveal a hidden truth that fundamentally changes how we understand the entire human experience. According to his readings, this dense incarnation wasn't actually a cosmic mistake or divine punishment, but rather an opportunity for souls to develop virtues and qualities that could never be cultivated in the perfect realm of pure light. The transformation that physical limitation brings allows us to develop patience through waiting, compassion through suffering, and courage through facing genuine adversity and uncertainty. This perspective completely shifts your mindset about why life often feels so challenging and why spiritual growth requires such effort. Behind the scenes of what appears to be cosmic exile, there's actually a sophisticated educational process unfolding. The decisions we make while navigating physical limitations, the character we develop while dealing with pain and loss, the wisdom we gain through making mistakes and learning from consequences. These experiences create qualities and understanding that pure spiritual existence could never provide. What makes this revelation even more profound is how it explains why God allowed this entire process to unfold the way it did. According to Cayce, the Supreme Creator established universal laws and principles, but deliberately allowed intermediary entities to carry out the actual physical creation process. This separation explains why human existence includes imperfections, limitations, and the capacity for both tremendous good and terrible mistakes. The impact of understanding this divine delegation reveals that our struggles aren't signs of abandonment, but rather evidence of the cosmic trust placed in our ability to learn and grow through direct experience. This framework transforms the entire human journey from a story of fall and punishment into an epic adventure of consciousness exploration and development. The hidden truth is that we're not lost souls trying to find our way back home. We're cosmic travelers on a carefully designed journey that will eventually return us to our original luminous state, but carrying with us all the wisdom, strength, and understanding we've gained through traversing the challenges of material existence. The revelations suggest that this return journey isn't automatic or guaranteed, but requires conscious choices, dedicated learning, and gradual purification through multiple incarnations. Each lifetime offers unique opportunities to heal aspects of our separation from divine consciousness, while developing qualities that will serve us throughout eternity. We're essentially students in the cosmic university of material existence, working toward graduation back into the realm of pure light. Now, I want to explore exactly what this return journey looks like and how we can begin recognizing and accelerating our progress toward reclaiming our original divine nature. Write in the comments, Cosmic University Student, if you recognize your life experiences as part of this greater educational journey towards spiritual mastery. Understanding that we're cosmic travelers on this incredible journey back to our original luminous essence changes everything about how we approach our daily experiences, our challenges, and our spiritual development. Every moment of growth, every lesson learned through adversity, every choice we make toward love and wisdom becomes part of our preparation for that eventual return to divine consciousness. What we've explored together today represents just the beginning of Edgar Cayce's revolutionary insights about human origins and destiny. These revelations don't just offer us a different creation story, they provide a completely new framework for understanding why we're here, what we're truly capable of, and where this extraordinary adventure is ultimately leading us. If this perspective has opened new doorways in your understanding and you'd like to continue exploring these profound spiritual mysteries with me, I'd love to have you subscribe to the channel. There's so much more depth to uncover in Cayce's readings. And honestly, having you along for this journey makes sharing these transformative insights even more meaningful. For those of you who've stayed with me through this entire exploration, I see you, and I appreciate the openness and curiosity you've brought to these challenging concepts. Drop a comment saying, "I'm ready for the return journey," so I know you made it all the way through and are resonating with this cosmic perspective on human existence. And if this conversation has stirred something deep within your own spiritual awareness, that like button is a beautiful way to acknowledge the connection we've created here today. There's a video right here that dives even deeper into what Cayce revealed about our spiritual abilities and how we can begin reactivating those dormant, divine capacities that are still encoded within us. Click over and let's continue this exploration together, because honestly, we're just getting started on uncovering the magnificent truth about who we really are.